valued viewers. I hope you're all doing very well. And a very special shout out to my Super Thanks contributor at EricHutton.1980. And because he did contribute $20 or more toward the channel's efforts, he has elected to do a video which covers the wreck of the old 97, the most famous wreck at that. And of course, a very gentle reminder that if you would like a custom video done, all you need to do is go to any video, hit the Super Thanks button near the like button, and contribute $20 or more to the channel's efforts, and go to the comment section and just simply tell me what you would like done, and I do it, taking priority over any project that I have going on at that time. And with that, on with the video. Enjoy. Driving along US 58 through Danville, Virginia, there is a reminder that this was the spot where the most famous train wreck in American history occurred, the wreck of the old 97. It was on a hot, steamy afternoon in late September of 1903 when Old 97, a 5-car mail express train, left Monroe, Virginia to go south. Monroe is a small community in the Piedmont section of Virginia and a few miles north of Lynchburg. The engineer of the old 97, Steve Brody, was taking the train to Spencer, North Carolina. This town is located between Greensboro and Charlotte, just off of Interstate 85. However, the departure from Monroe is late. Knowing this, Mr. Brody gave the engine full throttle, knowing that his train was behind schedule. Brody tried to make up the lost time between Lynchburg and Danville. He called to his firemen to throw more coal into the firebox, just to produce more steam and more power. Going downhill from White Oak Mountain some 12 miles north of Danville, the train reached a speed of 90 miles per hour. This was entirely too fast, but the engineer was planning to slow down as he approached the outskirts of Danville, a small, sleepy cotton mill town located on the Dan River in Southside Virginia. The old 97 locomotive was known as the Fast Mail, and the Fast Mail had a reputation of never being late. Locomotive 1102 was a 10-wheeler 460 engine built by the Baldwin Locomotive Works in Philadelphia. It had rolled out of the factory in early of 1903, less than a year before the wreck. On the day of the accident, Fast Mail was behind schedule when it left Washington, D.C., and was 1 hour late when it arrived at Monroe, Virginia. And when the train arrived in Monroe, its crew was switched, and when it left Monroe, there were 17 people on board. The train personnel included Chief Engineer Brody, Conductor John Blair, Fireman A.C. Clapp, Student Fireman John Hodge, and Flagman James Robert Moody. Also on board the train were several U.S. Postal Service employees. When the train pulled into Lynchburg, Wentworth Armistead, a safe blocker, boarded the train, and that brought the total number of onboard personnel to 18. Safe Locker is a railroad employee entrusted with accommodation to a train safe. While at Monroe, Chief Engineer Brody was instructed to get the Fast Mail to Spencer on time. The scheduled running time from Monroe to Spencer was 4 hours and 15 minutes, an average speed of about 39 miles an hour. In order to make up that 1 hour delay, the train's average speed would have had to have been at least 51 miles an hour. Brody was ordered to maintain speed through Franklin Junction in Gretna, an intermediate stop normally made during the run. The route between Monroe and Spencer ran through rolling terrain, and there were numerous danger points due to the combination of grades and tight radius curves. However, in his quest to stay on time, Brody rapidly descended a heavy grade that ended up at a 40-foot high Stillhouse trestle which spanned Stillhouse Branch. He was unable to sufficiently reduce speed as he approached a curve leading to the trestle, causing the entire train to derail and plunge into the ravine below. The flames that erupted afterwards consumed the splintered debris of the wooden cars, and it was very hard for the local fire department to extinguish the blaze. The investigation that followed was greatly hampered by the fire and the few witnesses to the accident. The air brakes on Old 97 had failed. Realizing the train could not make the curve next to the Dan River Mills Incorporated building on the river, the brave engineer did the next best thing he knew how to do. He pulled hard on the whistle to warn people in harm's way. The doomed train careened from the high wooden trestle, left the tracks, and wrecked next to the mill. Mr. Brody, along with 8 others, died in the wreck. This was from an article from the Washington Post of the accident that day. Charlotte, North Carolina, September 27, 1903. While running 30 to 35 miles an hour, train number 97 on the Virginia Midland branch of the Southern Railroad jumped from a trestle 75 feet high, half a mile north of Danville, Virginia, this afternoon, and was almost demolished. The wrecked train was exclusively for mail and freight, consisting of 4 postal cars and 1 express car, and was going southbound. Of the 16 persons on the train, 9 were killed and 7 were injured. At the foot of the trestle in a shallow stream with a rocky bottom, striking this, the engine and cars were reduced to a mass of twisted iron and steel and pieces of splintered wood. As the cars went down, they touched the sides of a riverside cotton mill, which is very close to the trestle. All the men were killed instantly, it is thought, and all were greatly mutilated. The skin and hair and the engineer and firemen were torn off by the impact of the steam engine. Several thousand people were soon at the scene of the wreck. No one on any of the cars had made an effort to jump, and the bodies of all those killed were found in the wreckage of the different cars to which they belonged. Ladies who drove out to the wreck from Danville fainted at the sight of the bodies. It seemed miraculous that anyone should have escaped, from each car falling as the engine bounded from it and completely collapsed after striking the rocks at the foot of the trestle. All the express in the express car was practically destroyed except 6 crates full of canary birds. None of the birds were hurt, miraculously, though the crates were in the thickest of the debris. The unofficial opinion is that the cause of the wreck was the high speed of the train on the sharp curve. Railroad men believe a flange on the engine wheel broke. Train number 97 was running about an hour behind, as we know, at that time. The mailbags in all the mail cars were torn open and the letters and packages were scattered everywhere, but it was believed that none of them were lost. Fire, which appeared in the wreckage shortly after it occurred, was quickly extinguished by the Danville Fire Department. On account of the wreck, all traffic on the central and northern divisions of the southern will be delayed for several hours. Arrangements are being made to run southbound trains over the Norfolk and Western from Lynchburg via Burkeville to Danville, which will cause delays for several hours. So again, we're on the Washington Post article here, and now they have the official reports on the wreck. Official reports to the Southern Railway general offices in the city state that the wrecked train was on time at the last station at which she reported, and that it was going at the rate of 30 to 35 miles an hour when it approached the trestle and ran off the track just north of that trestle, carrying the trestle down when the engine ran off the tracks to the ground below. Brady, the dead engineer, was about 55 years of age and had been with the Southern Railroad for about 20 years. His service, in large part, was being on the division of which the accident occurred. While reports leave in doubt just how the accident occurred, and it would take further inquiry to make this certain, it is believed here that the accident was due to a flange on the front wheel projecting over the rail, striking the ties. The trestle where the accident occurred would be fully repaired by an hour early this morning, and trains are expected to be running over it today. Okay, folks, so this is exactly why I don't like doing these reports without the official Federal Railroad Administration report or the ICC report, because the information that you get from the local newspaper that day here versus what you see in Wikipedia or any of these other sources that we all might have, they all conflicted with each other as far as even how old the engineer was, because Wikipedia would tell you that the engineer was 33 years old. And of course, the Southern Railroad is not going to tell everyone in the world that they told the engineer to, do whatever it takes to get that train on time, which in this case, we have a report that he was doing over 90 before he had to try to slow down, found out his air brakes didn't work, and then it derailed over the bridge. So everything conflicts here is what I'm getting at. And that's where, most importantly, where the ICC reports and the Federal Railroad Administration reports tend to clean that up a little bit, if not substantially. The News and Observer newspaper based in Raleigh, North Carolina, basically had this statement as well. Mr. T.E. Green, city ticket agent on the Southern Railway, received a telegram yesterday from Mr. S.H. Hardwicks, general passenger agent, giving an interview with Vice President Finley of the Southern Railway, giving his views of the wreck. Vice President Finley is quoted as saying, "The train consisted of 2 postal cars, 1 express car, and 1 baggage car for the storage of mail. The trestle was very little damaged as the train jumped the track about 40 feet north of the trestle on sound track, good line and surface, and proper gauge. The trestle was in first-class condition and was so well braced that the engine and train falling from the outside of the curve knocked down the outside post and left the other standing. Eyewitness reports state that the train was approaching the trestle at a rate of about 30 to 35 miles an hour. The loss of life and personal injuries are very much regretted. Okay, so folks, one thing to remember here, this is 1903. I kind of wonder how these eyewitnesses ascertained that the train was going 30 to 35 miles an hour. Who are these people? I find it just a little bit difficult to believe that Farmer John of 1903 can actually ascertain the speed of a locomotive going between 30 and 35 miles an hour. Especially since, things like automobiles and whatnot didn't really exist at that time. Basically, I feel like this was a prepared statement to hammer home the fact that the locomotive was in fact doing 30 to 35 miles an hour, because the Southern Railway cannot have any other speed besides that, and certainly not the 90 miles per hour we reported earlier. But also on the same hand, I also don't have anything official that states how the air brake system failed that was reported earlier. Again, these are irregularities that are usually cleaned up by the ICC report and whatnot. And I apologize for struggling to reading the newspaper articles because the print was difficult to read. It's really that simple. The bottom line is none of us are really ever going to know what happened that day. And this is definitely such an event that the truth lies somewhere in the middle of everything we just learned about. And the last thing to note about this accident, the disaster itself inspired several songs, the most famous being the ballad first recorded commercially by Virginia musicians G.B. Grayson and Henry Witter. Vernon Dalhart's version was released in 1924, sometimes cited as the first million-selling country music release in the American record industry, with Frank Fierro playing guitar and Dalhart playing harmonica. And with that, I shall wrap up the video. If you enjoyed the content today, please hit the like button. And also, if you've not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button, as both features help the channel grow immensely. And just a gentle nub about the super thanks once again. Any amount is greatly appreciated. And if you do want to contribute that way to the channel's efforts, visit our print shop at Nickel Plate Limited on Etsy.com. And we thank you once again.